This happened when I was just 13 years old. The internet was not just a distraction, but my world. School was a nightmare, and my home situation was not great, but there was something in the LOL line. And there I met Christine. She told me that she was a 14-year-old girl with red hair, and she was living a life like any other teenager. We kept talking for many months, and one night she asked me to meet her. I didn't even think about it again. That night I went out in the cold. My breath was creating clouds in the air. I was standing alone on the road and waiting. The thought that Mom must be very angry crossed my mind. Then I saw a car coming towards me. Isn't Christine too young to drive? Wow, she seems like a very cool girl, I thought. But as the car stopped near me, I saw a young man sitting inside. He had a smile on his face. He said that Christine was his niece and he had come to pick me up. I was just 13 years old, of course. I didn't doubt her words. I went with him. He took me to a house near the woods. "Where is Christine?" I asked as I entered the quiet house. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand and started pulling me downstairs. "What is happening? What are you doing?" I screamed. He didn't answer and was just dragging me towards the basement. The basement was like I was in a nightmare. Chains were hanging from the ceiling. There were red marks on the walls which looked like blood. He pushed me to the ground and then tied the chain to my leg. "You are mine now." He leaned towards me and said. His smile was so big that his yellow pointed teeth were clearly visible. There is no running, no hiding, just us. The first night I kept shivering in that cold, damp basement. By that time I had come to know that there was no girl named Christine. This man lied to me and now I was his slave. The next day I was made to sit on a chair and a camera was placed in front of me. That sick madman held a knife to my throat and whispered, "They all want to see you smiling." I didn't scream. He screamed in my ear. I said, "Smile." He put the knife to my lip and pressed it down, and as it pierced my cheeks, blood started to flow. My eyes started to tear up. I started to cry. "Music. You can't do this to me. You won't listen." "Yes." He took out some duct tape and put it over my mouth and nose to seal it. My chest started to tighten, and I felt difficulty breathing. My heart started to pound, and fear settled inside me. He lit a cigarette when he came close. I could see the splinter breath he asked. His voice was soft. "I'm walking, so behave myself." He brought the cigarette to me and placed the splinter on the corner of my eye. When he placed the burning tip near my eye, my tears started to flow. My sobs filled the whole basement. Then he placed the splinter on my neck. The pain was unbearable. My body started to shake, but because I was tied up in chains, I just sat there. He still gave me a tattoo. He was laughing like a sick man when he finally removed the tape from my mouth. I started to gasp for breath. I started to cry so much I was feeling like I was choking. He started laughing, caressing my cheeks as if I was a small child. "Good girl, you are learning." The next day he tied my hands behind my back and forcibly made me sit on my knees in front of the camera. "Do not move at all," he said in a low voice. Then he took out the catch and slowly cut my hair. Stopped me from struggling. He held my shoulder and walked. He forced me to sit like a dummy. "Don't spoil my amazing work." I pressed my lips so hard to stop myself from screaming that blood came out of them. When his work was done, he stepped back and started admiring his excellent work. "Be beautiful." He showed his work with the help of every angle of the camera and said they will like it a lot. It is true that the man is not only torturing me, but also making a video of it. And there are people who are enjoying watching a 13-year-old girl being tortured like this. It made me realize what kind of society we live in. After recording me like this, he picked up a chain from the ground. Now the time has come, I went to take it to the next level. He turned it on and said, I tried to push it away, but the chain didn't let me go much further. He grabbed my leg and held it in place. The vein was just a few inches away from my leg. "Do you have any problem using the chain?" He smiled and brought the chainsaw closer to me. I struggled and screamed and begged, but he came closer. He moved the blade towards my leg. The teeth of the metal chain were about to touch me, and I thought that I was going to die right here. "I won't survive," laughs. Just then, the door opened loudly. There were shouts and torches were seen. The sound of the chainsaw stopped and the voice of some man in uniform filled the room. He didn't put up a fight. He just stood there and kept smiling as he put the handcuffs on me. I don't remember much after that. The chains were removed and someone took me outside into the light, but a part of me is still in that basement. Even today, when I close my eyes, I can hear the sound of his chainsaw. I can feel that blade in my hand. It feels on my skin, and I think I came so close to never getting out of there. On New Year's Day 2002, 13-year-old Alicia Kozak Weiss was kidnapped by a 38-year-old computer programmer. He befriended her online while pretending to be a 14-year-old girl. Over the course of 4 days, Terry held Alicia captive in a basement cell where she was shackled, abused, and tortured. Terry made a video of the torture and uploaded it to the dark web. A viewer in Florida recognized Alicia through news reports and flyers. She contacted the FBI anonymously through a payphone because she feared she would be arrested for being an accomplice to the crime tracking Terry's IP address. The FBI arrested him on January 4, 2002. In September 2003, Tyree was sentenced to 19 years and 7 months in federal prison. I am 27 years old and have a beautiful little son who loves me. I work very hard to give my family a good life. I live with my fiancé Marsan in West Yorkshire, England. Things were not going well between us. Marsan would get very angry and would shout at every little thing. His bitter words would leave a deep wound, but I would keep quiet for the sake of my child. I thought things could get better. On Thursday, I was doing some housework. I took a day off from work. Marsan was sitting very quiet in the living room and was not even looking at me. Late in the evening, he told me that his friend Patrick was coming over for dinner. I did not like Patrick from the beginning. His behavior was as strange as the actor from Shiny, but I did not say anything to avoid a fight. Around 9 p.m., we all sat down to eat. Marsan and Patrick were laughing loudly at some joke that I had no idea about, and I was eating quietly. The tension in the room felt suffocating, but I kept quiet. I started thinking about my son, and how this was another moment of suffering. After dinner, I went to wash the dishes. I made an excuse and got up from there so that I could get some peace. After that, as soon as I turned to go to my room after finishing my work, I felt something pointed hiding behind my neck. Before I could understand anything, I felt an electric shock in my body. My knees bent. Things around me started spinning and darkness spread in front of me. The sound of digging and soil falling on something hard made me wake up. I opened my eyes and I could see only darkness. My hands were tied tightly with tape, and similarly, my legs were also tied. I tried to move, but due to less space, I remained there. I started feeling nervous because I felt as if I was inside something small and tight, maybe a box. I run for help. My voice was trembling with fear. Merson, what is going on?" I heard someone whispering as if someone was talking to each other. She got up. Patrick said her voice sounded as if she was enjoying it. "Great," Mars replied. "Let her shout like this, it doesn't matter now." My heart started beating fast. What did she mean? I tried to listen more. But the sound of falling sand drowned out all other sounds as I began to realize the truth. My breathing became faster. They were cutting me alive. "Please don't do this," I screamed. I kicked the walls of the box. As the sand kept falling, the sounds from outside began to fade, and then I heard a few minutes later, I heard Marson's car driving away. Oh God, they had left me to die. The air inside the box became hot and heavy. The darkness gripped me, and I was suffocating with fear. My mind started to wonder how someone I once loved could do this, but why the sand kept falling and pushing me further away from the world. My body shook with sobs as I tried to tear off the tape tied around my wrist. Then I felt something, the sharp edge of my engagement ring. My breath caught in my throat. Could I use this? It was small, but at least I had something. I rolled the ring against the tape and dragged it back and forth until my fingers trembled with fear. It seemed like it was taking ages. The weight of the fallen sand was pressing down on me in the box. Finally, the tape broke. My hands were released, but the fight was not over. Using my hands, I pushed the box. I was weak, but the weight of the soil made me strong. I tried with all my might to dig it out. I tore it into pieces. My nails broke and my fingers were covered in blood, but I didn't stop. Eventually the box broke and the soil spread around me. I pushed, suffering inch by inch until my hands reached the surface. I was gasping for breath as I pushed myself out of the grave. The cold night breeze hit my face. It was sharp and stinging, but it was the most beautiful thing. I had never felt like this before. I staggered to the road. My legs were trembling. My clothes were torn, my hair was caked with mud, and every part of my body ached. Then I saw a bright light coming closer from a distance. I started screaming for help and waving my arms around loudly. The car slowed down. The guy inside was staring at me wide-eyed. At first, he was hesitant to help me, but when I fell to the ground, he immediately got out. My voice was hoarse and I could hardly speak. I told them what was happening to me. Please help me. They tried to kill me. The police finally arrested my fiancé and his crazy friend for trying to kill me. I fought tooth and nail to get out of my grave. And I will fight for my son and for my life. And I will fight for the life that will be taken from me. In 2011, Micheline, a young woman from Lavoise, survived a terrible incident when her fiancé Marsan and his friend Patrick Boris attacked her with a stun gun. They tied up Micheline and buried her alive in a cardboard box in a nearby cemetery. They did this to end their relationship and to gain custody of their child. Patrick buried her in a small grave that he had filled with soil and a tree stump, covered it with a twig. Using her sewing ring to cut the box, Micheline used her hands to free herself from there, reported to the police. Both were arrested and sentenced to 20 years. No one saw this coming, not even me, but one thing led to another, and now I'm here, remembering everything about that night at Buffalo Wild Wings. It was a working Saturday and my plan was simple, a few drinks and a little distraction. But when your emotions are boiling, things don't go as planned. I arrived at about 10 p.m. The night was full of excitement. Conversation was constant, whispering, the sound of glasses clinking, the smell of hot sauce in the air. At first, everything seemed fine. I just wanted to get lost in the crowd, another face in Colombia, a shadow that no one noticed. But then he appeared, a boy I already knew, a person I didn't get along with. At first I saw him laughing there. I felt the cold metal in my pocket. His weight was giving me a false sense of strength. I thoughtfully took a few steps when a waiter came in front of me. He looked at me with curiosity and a little irritation. "Can I help you in some way?" He asked me. He realized that I was not going to sit. I shook my head and said no, and showed pride to myself. "Thank you." I replied as if everything was normal. My eyes started looking back at that corner where that boy was sitting. Our eyes met and sharp words were spoken to each other. The tension between us was evident, and before I could understand anything, my hand automatically moved forward and grabbed the gun kept in my pocket. I took aim, and with a single word, I shattered the night into thousands of pieces. Run, run, as soon as the panic spread like fire. I heard someone shouting, people were stumbling and falling from the chairs, and the waiter who I had met a few minutes ago started looking at me with a pale face. A friend of the injured boy, seeing me, shouted, "Have you gone mad? Have you gone mad? What did you do?" In the end, I did not reply. I knew that no one came out of my mouth. No words can testify to my action. I managed to escape from the crowd before the police arrived, but I was not fast enough. The sound of the police car started to be heard, and the blue and red lights of the car started falling on the road. I stopped on the side of the road. My breathing became fast, and within a few minutes the police surrounded me. One of them came in front of me, took out a gun, and started shouting, "Put your hands up, don't move!" I raised my hands and looked straight into his eyes. "Calm down, officer, I am not going anywhere." As soon as they handcuffed me, the police whispered, "Why did you ruin your life?" I took a deep breath, thinking that no one will understand, because if for a moment someone realizes that I exist too, that is enough, I replied softly. Later inside the jail, I heard some policemen talking about how Buffalo Wild Wings was closed the very next day and how the employees there were scared to come to work. I realized at this moment how one moment had created a storm in the normal lives of so many people, and I realized the weight of my mistake. I thought about how Colombia had fallen into a cycle of violence. The news reported that crime rates fell by 16% last year, which made me laugh. A few numbers on a piece of paper can't explain the pain behind every story, like the man who died at Walmart in March or the shootings in May. The city may move forward in the hope of change, but I knew I could never escape the person I had become, the person who shot someone on a normal Saturday night. The incident happened on Saturday night, August 7th, 2024. A man was taken to the hospital after being shot in South Colombia. Columbia Police Department officers found the man with gunshot wounds at the Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant in East Nipa just before midnight. Alexis, the man believed to be responsible for the incident, was arrested on charges of first-degree assault and unlawful possession and use of a weapon. Police said the man poses no further threat to society.